Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Should have been reaching. I'll be doing my first book haul of 2022. So if you're new to this channel, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below as well as hit the notification bell. But let's get started with all the books that I have purchased recently, have gotten in book subscription boxes, have gotten from publishers, etc. So a few months ago, I finally signed up for GSFF, which I am so happy to because I feel like they have, I'm trying to get more into like adult fantasy these days, or just adult books in general, and they have such a good selection, plus they're all customized, like special editions. So I thought it would be a really good way to just kind of like splurge every month, especially for the ones that I'm really interested in. And so far, like all the books have been like they sound good. I haven't actually read any of them yet. So this book I got from them is Age of Ash by Daniel Abraham. This is a adult fantasy. This is such a pretty cover, and it's signed as well. All it says over here is that it's a monumental epic fantasy trilogy which unfolds within the walls of a single great city over the course of one tumultuous year. And that's all I know. So we'll see how this goes, but this cover just looks really pretty with a stunning edge. Then the next stack of books I got are actually from books that I purchased. There's some sort of sale going on, so I splurged a little bit. This book is The Damned by Renee Ahdieh. I read the first book, The Beautiful, recently, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed it more than I expected because I feel like her books it's a hit or miss, and I feel like The Beautiful I actually enjoyed. So I saw this book on sale and I had to pick it up, and apparently it's a signed copy, so here it is. But yeah, I'm very excited for this book. It just follows the aftermath of the first book. It's been like a few months since I read that book, but I really enjoyed it, so I'm happy to get a copy of the sequel. Then this next book that I picked up is The Beast Warrior by Naoko Uehashi, and this book, honestly, the first book was so good. I listened to an audiobook and I was so floored by how whimsical and invested I became with the story, because I feel like this is a book that I just don't really hear too much about, The Beast Player, and this is the sequel which kind of follows, I think that's like 50 years later or something like that, when they're like older, but it's still supposed to be like really good, and I'm so excited to pick up this book and just continue on the story. Then this next book I picked up is The Secret Bridesmaid by Katie Birchall. This is a adult romance, and that's kind of all I know. I've heard good things about this book. I think Madison read it and she really liked it, so I was like, I had to read it too. Honestly, I'm not good at giving synopsis of books, especially books I have not read yet, mainly because I kind of buy books on a whim. I like read the synopsis like months ago, and I'm like, that's on my want to read list, my TBR, and then when I see it on sale, I'm like, oh, this is a book that I want to read, I'll just buy it. And then by that point it's like months later, sometimes even like a year later, and I have not reread the synopsis. All I know is that I want to read that book, and I bought it. So anyways, the next book is 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes. This one I picked up because I want to say it's like Greek mythology inspired. Yeah, okay, it says over here it's about like, I want to say it's like feminist Greek mythology. It says it's about the Greeks and the Trojans, and after Troy has fallen, and it follows a Trojan woman whose fates now lie in the hands of the Greeks, to the Amazon princes who fought Achilles on their behalf. So I love my Greek mythology. I saw this book, I was very intrigued. I love all things Greek mythology, so obviously I had to pick up this one. The next book I picked up is Phoenix Flame, and this is by Sarah Holland. This is the sequel to Havenfall, which I read. At this point, it's been a few years, but I remember enjoying it pretty much, so I wanted to pick up the sequel. And yeah, I saw it on sale and I figured why not take up the chance and pick it up. And I'm excited to kind of continue on with it because I feel like the ending left things very open-ended. All right, then this next book that I got is actually from my Lumicrate box, and that is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. Look at how stunning this book is. It is absolutely gorgeous. Look at the inside, so pretty. This is by Rebecca Ross, and I have no idea what this book's about, but she is one of my favorite authors, so I have very high expectations of this one, and I believe this is her first adult fantasy, so I have very high expectations going into it. The next book that I got is actually from the publisher, and I am very grateful to receive a copy of this, and that is Book of Night by Holly Black. I am so happy. This book comes out in May 2022, and I cannot wait to read this book because I have adored her books in the past. I don't know what this book's about, but it's by Holly Black. She's a must-read, must-buy author, so obviously I'm happy about this one. Next book that I got is also from a publisher, and that is Fake It Till You Bake It by Famie Wesley. This book comes out on June 2022, and it says over here like a short blurb, whipping up a batch Meeting Your Match and Finding True Love. So obviously there's going to be baking involved. Look at the cover, the guy's baking. So I'm just really curious about how baking is going to be involved with this book. Apparently it looks like a set at a cupcake bakery, so I'm very intrigued. Maybe I will bake something while I read this book, but this book sounds adorable. The next book that I got is The No Family by Grace K. Shin. This one I got from the publisher, and this one's out on May 2022. So this book basically follows a girl who somehow she's doing a DNA test, and she finds out that her dead dad, estranged family, is actually a chaebol, which basically is like a Korean word for like the really rich families, and that they are called the No's, and they apparently own a famous high-end department store in Seoul, and they are rich. And so when they find out about the genetic connection, they invite her to visit Korea, and I'm assuming things kind of happen from there. But I am so intrigued because it sounds like a really good K-drama, and I feel like I'm down to read this book. Next book that I got is also from the publisher, and that is I Guess I Live Here Now by Claire Ann. This one is out on May 2022. And this book basically follows a girl, her name is Melody, where one day like something happens, like a transgression happens, and her family immediately decides to pull her from school from New York City to join her father in Seoul. And now she is very resentful, obviously doesn't get a chance to say goodbye to anyone, and now she's just forced to leave the country. And so now she finds herself in Seoul with a brand new life essentially, and she's actually, you know, kind of happy there until cracks start to show. So I'm really intrigued by this book. Sounds amazing. Definitely cannot wait to read this soon. Next book that I got is also from a publisher, and that is Girl in Ice by Erica Faranick. I really hope I pronounced that last one correctly. This one is out on, oh, this one already came out in January 11th, 2022. So it's been a while actually, because it's now March. It says over here that it is a thriller set in the unforgiving landscape of the Arctic Circle, struggling to understand the apparent suicide of her twin brother as she ventures hundreds of miles north to try to communicate with a young girl who has thawed from the ice alive. That seems very intriguing. Sounds way more interesting than I expected actually, so definitely wanted to read this soon. Then this next book that I picked was actually a book that I purchased, and that is Castle in the Bones by Laura Sebastian. I actually don't know what this book is about at all, but it sounds like it's along the same veins of the Selection series, which I really adored, you know, many years ago. So I don't know, we'll see how this goes, but it can either go really well or really bad for me. We'll see. The next book that I purchased as well is The God of Lost Words by AJ Hackwith. This is part of the Library of the Underwritten series. I think this is book 3 actually, but I really need to catch up on this series because I adored the first one. The first one reminded me of Sorcerer of Thrones, but like denser adult version of it, and I have yet to continue on because I'm stupid obviously. But yeah, this is another book in the series. I was like, I need to continue on because I love the first book, so cannot wait to read this. Then the next book that I got is actually from a book trade, and that is Cytonic by Brandon Sanderson. For those who don't know, Brandon Sanderson is actually a must-read author for me, and he just came out with the whole like secret fact that he like, it's just crazy about his whole secret novel. So obviously I went on Kickstarter immediately and just got the books because I was like, I couldn't help myself. But yeah, so anyways, I got this book. Very happy that I got this from a book trade, and this is the continuation of the Skyward series. This is another series that I really need to catch up on because I read the first book and I read the second book, so I just need to read the third book now. And I don't know if there's more books, if this is the end of the series, but either way though, I'm very excited for this one. I also got the next book from a book trade, and that is In Every Generation by Kendra Blake. This book just sounds really cool. It's about vampires, or specifically Vampire Slayer. It kind of follows Buffy, but like the next generation of it, and it sounds so fascinating because I read Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or I watched the series back in high school, and this is like when it came out, like for many years already. It was already like a grainy version by that point, but I never watched it before, so I watched it for the first time. I was like super invested in the story, so I'm really curious about this one. Next book that I got is also from a book trade, and that is Made in Korea by Sarah Suk. I have no idea what this book is about, but this cover seems so adorable, and I've seen this everywhere. So obviously I've been getting a lot of like Korean inspired or like set in Korea books, so I feel like those will be the books I'm going to read in some sort of like video in the future. Just group them all together because there's so many apparently, and I'm very excited about all of them. The next one that I got is also from a book trade, and that is Better Together by Christine Riccio. I am very hesitant about this book, but it was in a book trade and she had it, and I was like, you know what, I'm curious enough, I just don't want to like buy the book. So we'll see how this goes, but But I was very hesitant because I didn't love the first book that she wrote, and I haven't really heard too much about this one, but we'll see. But it's supposed to be a new sister, new love, but can she find her path? And it says over here, a new sister, a new love, but can she find her voice? So I'm assuming it's gonna follow like two sisters, and it says over here they're separated at a young age by parents' volatile divorce, and then when they meet up over a decade later, decide to switch places. That's interesting. I actually did not know what this book's about, but I'm very curious now. It kind of reminds me of like Parent Trap, but like with the kid version. All right, then this next book that I picked up is actually for my Owl Crate subscription, and that is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. Look how beautiful this cover is, and I love this gold edges. It is so stunning. And look at the inside. It's just a really pretty edition, and I'm so excited for it. All I know is that this is a West African mythology inspired with like Little Mermaid, and I've heard really great things so far, so obviously I cannot wait to read this. Then this next book that I picked up is one that I purchased, and that is Daughters of a Dead Empire by Caroline Tara O'Neill. This was one of my most anticipated reads for this year in one of my recent videos. I am really excited for this one. All I know about this book is that it is about an alternate history revolving around the Russian Revolution, and it sounds fascinating, especially with this whole Russian situation going on right now. The next book that I picked up is A League of Liars by Astrid Schultz. This book I am very intrigued by. I feel like Astrid, like her book sounds so good, but I've only read one, and it was kind of like middle of the road for me. So I have yet to pick up her other books, and I really want to continue on with more of her books because I want to see if this author is, you know, a hit or a miss for me in the future. But this cover is so cool, so I'm very intrigued by this. But the next book that I got is one that I'm not exactly sure where it came from. I want to say it's like a gift from someone on Amazon, but it wasn't from Amazon. It was from like a third-party seller, so I'm just confused overall, but just showed my doorstep. So but this book is Queen of Coin and Whispers by Helen Corcoran. This is a book that's been on my TBR for a while, mainly because look how beautiful this book is. So this book basically follows a girl called Leah, who is a teenage queen, and she ends up inheriting her corrupt uncle's bankrupt kingdom, and she ends up bringing a new spy master into the fold. Her name is Isania, who takes the job to avenge her murdered father. And so as the story progresses, they're faced with a bunch of dangerous plots, hidden enemies, secrets. The two of them have to learn to rely on each other, and they discover that all is not fair in love and treason. This sounds like such a fascinating book. Definitely cannot wait to read this. Next book that I got actually from the publisher, and that is Omens, A Bite by PC Cass and Kristen Cass. This is out on April 2022, and this is apparently the second book in the series, which I should probably read the first book because I also got it from the publisher and have not picked it up yet. All I know is that this is about sisters who are witches, and they are descended from the good family of witches, and there's something to do with like underworld, and they're protectors of the gates. Definitely a lot of stuff intriguing about this book for sure. I'm just hesitant because I feel like PC Cass books for me in the past, I forget which series that she wrote that is really famous, but that series dragged on for so long, and I felt like towards the end I just became so frustrated with the characters because they kept making the same mistakes over and over again, just in a different form, and it was just very frustrating as a reader. So after that I kind of stopped the series. I don't think I even finished the series, to be honest, and since then I haven't really had the urge to pick up any more of PC Cast books, but we'll see about this one. Maybe I'll give it a shot. Then the next book that I got is from a book box subscriptions from Fairy Loot, and that is Only a Monster by Vanessa Lynn. Look at this cover. It is so beautiful. I don't know why people are hitting on the purple, but I love this cover. I think it's such a nice dark purple shade, and the inside is obviously stunning as well. Honestly, I am loving the special editions because they're just so pretty to look at. So all I know about this book is it follows a girl. Her name is Joanne, and she is basically determined to enjoy herself over the summer. She loves her nerdy job, and one day her super cute coworker ends up asking her out. Turns out that this cute super coworker is actually a monster hunter, and that her family actually is monsters. So that's obviously a dilemma, but I love that kind of concept, so I'm very curious to find out like what kind of monster is she, what kind of monster her family, how is he a monster hunter, like what about the relationship, like how that can be resolved in the future. Lots of questions here, but I'm already very intrigued by this. Then the next book that I got is one that I purchased, and that is Darius the Great Deserves Better by Adib Khorram. I read this book I read the first book recently and I adored it. It was such a good, like, heartfelt, you know, coming of age story, and I don't know, I just adore the book so much. So obviously I saw this book and it's on sale, and I just picked it up. And it just continues on with Darius after he comes back from Iran, and kind of how that experience in Iran with his family and his like really good friend kind of shape his current situation now. So I'm just curious to learn more about him and just how he navigates more about high school. All right, next book that I got is also from a purchase, and that is Into the Blood Red Woods by Martha Brockenbrough. Okay, I got this book purely of a cover buy. Just look how beautiful that is, and the whole like jagged part over here, the talons, I'm assuming. Sounds so freaking cool. And unfortunately that's kind of all I know about this book, but I am definitely a cover buy person, and sometimes I regret this because then I read the book and it's not that good. But you know what, as of this point I have no regrets. So all right, then this next book that I picked up is a chunker, is one that I purchased, and that is The Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. This is the third book to the Stormlight Archive series, and it is a chunky book. I don't know when I'll get a time to actually read any of these books at this point, because I believe it's like a 10-book series and the fourth book is out, but that's kind of it. And based on what I've seen so far, it seems like he writes a book every 3 years in this series. So at this point I'm kind of like, do I want to read the series? Should I pick it up now? Should I pick it up later? But I want to make sure I pick it up like kind of on the early end, because I want to get these paperbacks and not the mass paperbacks. I feel like once it gets to a certain point in time, all the books kind of get converted only to mass paperbacks, and I don't want to read those books. So I need to get these floppy ones while they're still in print, which is why I'm still buying them at this point, because I want to make sure I get them all. But it's just, they're chunkers, and I just don't want to like start reading it when I know the next book won't be out for another few years, and I'll be very frustrated while I wait for all that. All right, then this next book that I purchased is The Storm of Echoes by Christelle Dybos. This is the last book in the Mirror Visitor series. This means that I need to now finish the series because I love the series. I read the first two and it's so good, and I just been waiting kind of to just finish off the series. So this book is basically set in a world where something happens, and now the earth has, or like the world has essentially shattered into many different arcs, and each arc kind of has its own political, you know, situation going on magic system. And for the main girl, her arc is one where it focuses on mirrors and objects kind of having souls. And one day she ends up getting betrothed to a guy who comes from another arc where it is very cold, and they have a very interesting, tense political situation over there. And of course, because she's getting married, she ends up moving to his arc and live with him. And so once she gets there, she finds out a lot about these political situations and obviously the family situations. And it's just a really fascinating book. It's like, I want to say it's very quirky, because I feel like it's definitely not what you typically think of a young adult fantasy, but for some reason it's just good for me, and I really enjoy like the quirkiness of the characters and kind of her like weirdness. It just clicks, it just makes sense for me. But yeah, like I adore the book, so obviously I want to continue on the series. All right, I have 2 more books left, and they're both from Book of the Month. The first one is Peach Blossom Spring by Melissa Fu. Okay, so the reason why I pick up this book is because it is a generational book, and if you know me, if you've been on the channel long, I love my generational saga. Like Pachinko, for instance, one of my absolute faves of all time. So I got this book in hopes that it is similar along the same veins of Pachinko, and we'll see. But this book spans from 1938, and it follows 3 generations of a Chinese family on a search for a place to call home. So I'm very curious. It seems like they go from China, and then they're forced to flee home, and then they settle in America while they're trying to deal with you know, the new country, also understand their own heritage with their children. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's supposed to be a history of modern China, so I'm intrigued for sure. I'm hoping it is somewhere along the lines of Pachinko, because that book is so good. All right, then this last and final book that I picked up is The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell. This is the book that's been on my TBR for quite some time. Lisa Jewell is definitely a must-read author for me because I really enjoyed her thrillers in the past. And if you know me well, I do not like to know too too much about thrillers before going into it, just because it gives off that element of surprise for me. But I'm excited for this one and definitely cannot wait to read this soon. So anyway, those are all the books that I picked up for the past 2 or so months, kind of 3 months actually. But I'm very excited for all of these, as you can clearly tell, some more than others obviously. But let me know down below if you have actually read any of these books before, what you guys think about them, which books should I pick up first that you think I should pick up. But as always, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. I really just help out my channel, and if you can see more content of me, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below, as well as hit the notification bell. And as always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.